I don't want to show my face because of the situation in the country. The voices of the armed groups are louder than the government's. So an Iraqi should always be careful, scared.
We were told that we needed to bring democracy to Iraq.
An axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
I remember George W. Bush making a joke, looking around his office for weapons of mass destruction, like opening desk drawers and cabinets. Not here.
Saddam Hussein, he was definitely a dictator. In the beginning, people were happy to be free.
As a sniper, people are just kind of hot blobs of white. It's hard to see what they're holding or carrying. I've killed people planting bombs and preparing to ambush our troops, but I've also killed people changing their tire on their car.
Is there really anyone who wouldn't fight for the sake of their country? That's impossible.
The U.S. described operations in Iraq as a war justified under international law and deployed hundreds of thousands of soldiers to the region on deceitful pretenses. How has that affected those who were put on the front lines, risking their lives for a lie?
During the war, in 2003, around the middle or end of March, I went to my uncle's house because the roads were closed. There were airstrikes everywhere. I found him eating rice and dates. There was no place to get food or bread. Nothing was available. I was really hungry, and at the time, this food was the best one could hope for. All of the restaurants, shops, everything was closed. There were heavy airstrikes at the time. So I ate rice with him. We had just started eating our meal when rockets fell near the government office. A heavy rocket struck nearby. The windows were already broken. Now there were just curtains. We were sitting on the floor next to them. The curtain flew all the way up, then back down. It was a massive strike. I was so scared that I stopped eating, but he carried on. I told him, "Don't you care?" He told me, "Every 10 minutes there is a missile, and death is inevitable."
متأكدين من هذا راح نموت مثلا.
When you're a medic, you see people, you see human beings. I remember one guy came through and I just kept looking at him. He was dying right in front of me, and he wasn't an American soldier. All I could think about was my grandfather, because he was that age. He was somebody's grandfather. It was really hard. That was probably one of the hardest patients that I worked on, because I already knew that that family was going to lose a father, a grandfather, an uncle, a brother, just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was just an innocent bystander.
I was not a very good shot in basic training. So it's interesting that eventually I became a sniper. They were a clear enemy combatant. They were trying to flank me in my position, and I predicted where they were going to move and waited for them. And as soon as they got out in the open, I pulled the trigger, took them down, and I was filled with this sense of satisfaction, like I did it, you know? I was watching this guy I shot, and he wasn't dead. He was on his back, and he was arching his back and like spinning, like kicking with his feet and spinning in a circle, and just in pain. And I was like horrified, and I shot him like 8 more times to get him to stop moving. And just like that, I never got that feeling of satisfaction again. Of all the people I killed in Iraq, I've never once felt that another time.
In 2001, 9/11 shocked the US and the world. Alongside Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, America singled out another suspect.
Iraq continues to flaunt its hostility toward America and to support terror. The Iraqi regime has plotted to develop anthrax and nerve gas and nuclear weapons for over a decade.
On the 20th of March 2003, the US launched a war against Iraq. Together with Britain and a coalition of the willing, they called it Operation Iraqi Freedom.
It was the ugliest invasion. It's proved by the fact that the entire region has now been destabilized by their presence there. When they occupied Baghdad, they occupied the entire region. When the regime fell in Iraq, many other regimes fell with it.
In the beginning, however, people were happy to be free. They were happy to vote, you know. They had the blue thumbs after they voted and things like that. Where I think it went wrong is we stayed there too long. We didn't really have like a full-on plan for how to help them after we relieved them from Saddam Hussein.
We didn't find any weapons of mass destruction, but we looked pretty hard.
They called it terrorism. There was retaliation. If Americans killed Iraqis, they say it's fighting terrorism. But if Iraqis fight back and Americans kill them, that's called self-defense.
None of my leaders are being held accountable for Iraq.
The US justified its war against Iraq as a preemptive move. The aim was to prevent Saddam Hussein from carrying out an attack with weapons of mass destruction. A lie that even the US Secretary of State at the time, Colin Powell, indirectly admitted in an interview with Al Jazeera in 2011. By definition, what happened in Iraq in 2003 was a war of aggression in violation of international law. February 2022, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Here too, it all began with a lie.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима. И для этого мы будем стремиться к демилитаризации и денацификации Украины.
No sooner had the invasion begun, Russian aggression was denounced by most Western countries. But a United Nations resolution condemning Moscow's actions exposed clear polarity. Many countries in the global south abstained from voting. This included nations such as China and India, representing most of the global population. For some observers, this global polarization can be traced back to the Iraq War, a view shared by British Labour Party MP and peace activist Andrew Murray.
Of course, there's a moral double standard when dealing with the situation in Ukraine and the situation in Iraq that I served at. I mean, you know, we have the gall to, you know, say that somebody, basically another nation doing the exact same atrocity that we did is illegal and one isn't. My father was in the military. He was a Vietnam veteran. Now, I wasn't naive about military service. After my father had served and I grew up on military bases, we moved to Colorado, and my father died of Agent Orange-related cancer the year after we arrived. And it led me to drop out of high school and really struggling on the economy to figure out how to pay my bills, how to go to college. Really, I was part of an economic draft. I was 25 years old when I joined the U.S. Army in 2001, 1 month before September 11th.
When I came into this world, Saddam Hussein was the ruler. Whether that was good or bad, it was something we had to live with. We used to hear when we were kids that he ruled with a fist of fire and iron. He sat atop the country, and no one else could say otherwise. There was one ruling party, and that was the Ba'ath Party. We as Iraqis could not give different opinions on political matters. There was only one opinion, so we learned to stay silent.
I didn't end up in the Army until I was almost 23. I had almost lost my left hand when I was younger, and the military didn't want to let me in because of that. But I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until they said yes. I wanted to be like a G.I. Jane. So that was the best way I could prove myself. If I could do that, then I knew that I could do anything else in life. I always felt a need to help people. That's why I joined as a medic, so that I could help people while I was in.
When I was a teenager, before I joined the military, I wanted to be a soldier and have power. I joined the army in 91 or 92. There were issues finding a job back then. I was committed to the army. There were good, strong leaders, so I took part. During the war in 2003, I had a position in the military. One of the officials called us together and told us, "Brothers, the enemy has arrived and is determined. War is inevitable. The invading forces have reached the Gulf and have prepared themselves." We heard that American soldiers had landed nearby at the airport. The soldiers who were at the airport were all killed because the Americans bombarded the area with prohibited weapons. Radioactive, phosphorus, or cluster bombs. These cluster bombs, if fired, explode before they hit the ground. They killed many people. I hid myself in one of the schools nearby on the airport road, which is now close to the green zone. I raised my head to try to see what it was. I'd seen American soldiers on TV before, but I hadn't seen them with my own eyes. Then I was seeing Americans with tanks, Hummers, and bulletproof cars entering the presidential palace. It made me very sad. Tears fell from my eyes. I cried. I cried hard due to exhaustion and fatigue because we lost the battle. We lost the country. The statue was on 14th Ramadan Street near the Sheraton Hotel and the Palestine Hotel. I heard the statue fell. Then I saw the videos at my family's house outside Baghdad. The fall of the statue wasn't about Saddam Hussein as a person. Leaders come and go, but to see America as a foreign power occupy your country is hard for anyone to deal with.
On the 1st of May 2003, from the deck of the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, President George W. Bush declared the official end of the war in Iraq. But the real war had only just begun.
So I deployed to Iraq January 2004. We were in this massive convoy, lined up all the way across the desert on this highway, and crossed into Iraq. Kids, like, seemingly living on the side of the road. A group of them were yelling, you know, "George Bush #1, USA #1, USA #1. And we drove past them, and then they switched to giving us the middle finger and cursing at us and throwing rocks. And I was like, whoa, like. And after encountering more and more Iraqis heading north, even just that first day, it was clear that we weren't being seen as liberators and, you know, saviors and people who were there to help. We were seen as more of the problem.
The war turned into a longer occupation. After the dissolution of the Iraqi army in May 2003, militias formed in the same year to wage an asymmetric war against the US. Starting in October 2004, these armed groups included Al-Qaeda in Iraq.
We hit IEDs on the drive just to get to the base. We got into small arm conflict. I, fired 50 cal machine gun at people, and there were casualties. I don't even know, even at that point, if I had killed anyone, because it was so hard to tell in the craziness of combat.
Damn you. First hand's over here.
Take it all.
No, 6.
Go for it.
I will. You're first.
Take it all.
Sweet cheeks.
Appreciate that.
We were there from January of 2005 to January of 2006. And I was in Baghdad. We were near Sadr City. We were on FOB loyalty. Sadr City is probably the city that hated us the most. When I would go to treat children in that city, I would have bricks and chunks of rocks and cement thrown at me and being hit the whole time while I was trying to treat someone. Everybody in Iraq was a threat. Women, children, men, just alike, all of them would shoot you. All of them would carry a gun. They would definitely put bombs inside of animals and send them towards the FOBs. We always called the Marines like, they were just kind of like bullet catchers. Well, because they just go in first and they just start shooting.
Well,
that's their job, right?
The thing that separates the Marine Corps from any other branch is when you're taking fire. And the other branches, when you're under fire, they take cover.
Not Marines.
The Marines don't take cover. The Marines go after where the fire is coming from. We would clear like over 150 homes and buildings a day. Like, it was just nonstop kicking in doors and detaining people, and that was it. I mean, it was nuts.
An iconic image from the Iraq War shows Amber's brother-in-law, Jordan. It was taken in Fallujah in 2004. Jordan was a Marine, just like Amber's husband, Carl.
Some people are like, oh, I remember seeing that. That's your brother-in-law?
Just says America.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything about that photo says America.
I think it's really cool. They took out a lot of medics during our rotation. They would blow up one truck or injure someone and wait for the medic to come forward to start treating someone and take the medic out. I was shot at once, and I have a photo of it because I'm smiling behind the glass because it didn't go all the way through. And I was super excited that I was still alive.
I got to know some Iraqi people. It's hard to have a fair relationship and discussion with somebody when you're wearing body armor, have a Kevlar helmet, and a rifle in your hands.
The Americans brought us destruction, religious division, hunger, discrimination, and racism. So many terrible things.
We did a lot of missions on the roof of a Iraqi police station in Hib, and I got to know one of the police officers there who joined the police, the Iraqi police, to earn dowry to get married. The guy just rode a motorcycle, didn't have any other form of vehicle, so I try to hook him up with some things because he's always having problems riding his bike around Iraq. But it was a good relationship. After Abu Ghraib was exposed, he stopped talking to me.
The U.S.-run Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq hit the headlines in 2004. Detainees had been systematically tortured in violation of the Geneva Convention. The only sentences handed down were to junior officers allegedly acting on their own initiative, not to anyone in politics or military leadership. However, before that, in 2002, the U.S. government had approved what it termed enhanced interrogation techniques in its war on terror.
I mean, I was in Iraq writing an anti-war blog. I even was writing under an anonymous name, just calling myself Soldier X, writing analysis of what I thought was going on and my anger towards the developing situation politically and current events and how I thought about them, whether it was Abu Ghraib or Fallujah. I got busted. I had to report before my commander, and yeah, I walked in, and he was very frank with me. He said, "You're being investigated now for breaking operational security and possibly treason. And if found guilty, the highest penalty could be death. Like, you could be killed."
My best friend Regina and the civil affairs team was out on a mission, and she was hit by one of these new explosives. It blew her and the gunner, Wiley, into many, many pieces. And I remember I was outside when they towed her truck back onto the fob. And it's like I already knew, because when you're towing a truck back, it's not good. And I remember her commander walking towards me. And he told me what had happened. It's 2 days before Christmas and about 3 weeks before we go home. And none of them can pull themselves together enough to remove their bodies from the vehicle, and so they asked me to do it.
Donadago Ha'i is until we meet again.
Ostahigaheda is
have a great day.
Have a great day.
I am Native American, I am Cherokee and Blackfoot.
Sio, I'm Donetta, and welcome to Cherokee Word of the Week. This week's word is Didani Lusty.
Didani Lusty. Didani Lusty.
Which means welcome.
Didani Lusty.
Be sure to check in for next week's
Didani Lusty.
My husband was in the Navy. Carl definitely saw some terrible things. Marines are definitely gun bunnies.
We kind of have our own times during the year where it weighs heavy on us, particularly when it comes close to the time of the death of a fallen comrade. You know, you always think of that time of the year. And so it weighs burden in certain times of the year. And we kind of know, you know, just by each other's energy, being each other's rock. I wouldn't have a rock without you. I would just have nothing to hold on to.
And just float away.
I'd float away.
I don't know any of the guys in my unit that are still, you know, doesn't have high levels of anxiety, PTSD, depression issues. A lot of them have experienced homelessness, incarceration, have gone to jail, substance abuse issues, a lot of suicide. a lot of death by overdose. You know, it's like every day having to relive Iraq over and over again. Yeah.
When my oldest daughter graduated, I suddenly remembered her first day in the first grade. There had been an explosion nearby. It was scary. We were inside the house and said, God willing, nothing will happen. Then I remembered that I have a child who's at school. I called out to my wife and told her, our daughter, we forgot about her, run. The explosion had been very close to the school. We couldn't reach our daughter. We didn't know if she was alive or was martyred and dead with the other victims. It was a hard day. Thanks to God, she was in class with the other students. All the windows were shattered. There was only slight injury. Terrorists had targeted a hospital, and the school was close to the hospital. At the time, they were targeting hospitals.
I'm not entirely convinced that we were justified to go there.
Lives in chaos, refugees, you know, a vacuum that created ISIS eventually, like refugee problem that changed the dynamics of politics in Europe, you know, just this horror that occurred.
The geopolitical reverberations are tangible to this day, far beyond Iraq and the wider region. To date, according to international research, more than 4.5 million people have died in the wars on terror that followed 9/11. The victims were killed either in direct combat or as a result of war. Many were women and children. Large areas of Iraq are contaminated by depleted uranium munitions. Children there are born with deformities. The economy is in ruins, spelling poverty and hunger. The U.S. has never made reparation payments to Iraq or compensated individual victims.
The decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, too. Anyway.
Now everything is different. We changed something, and in exchange we lost something else. We exchanged it for a life that enables us to have Pepsi Cola, provides us mobile phones. There are sandwiches that we don't know the names of, Western names we don't know. There are satellites. Everything is available. There are luxury cars. None of that adds value. It's chaos. Life was better before.
If I were able to meet up with people in Iraq these days, while it would be nice to sit down and have a meal with them and some of their wonderful tea, part of me feels like it might not even be possible to ever do that. Because they might just kill me as soon as I get there.
I want to apologize for my personal participation in that hurt, and I want to apologize for my nation's participation in it. And I love your country. I love Iraq. I love the smell of oranges in the summertime, and you know, the shape of the cities, and I can see past the barbed wire and the blown up buildings and just see wonder.
Every Iraqi, every person hopes for wellness, stability, and development for their country. There is no stability if we are not safe. Americans wouldn't listen to my advice, but if they happened to hear me, I'd say stay away from the region, leave its people alone to live in peace.
These boots were never comfortable, stained with the sandy dirt, sewage, and blood.
The closer to leaving, the longer it takes. IED, contact. RPG, contact. Mortars, contact. VBID, contact. Home.